Welcome to this episode of The Heart of the Matter. Today we have a couple of really important heroes. I'll call them heroes because of what they do for the less privileged. I want you to welcome with me to The Heart of the Matter, Oluwafunmilayo David. She's the founder of GEMS Preparatory School, and along with her is a member of their governing council, Mrs. Yetunde Abe. You're welcome to The Heart of the Matter. Let me tell you what they do. They take the children of blind people, mostly people that you end up seeing begging on the streets, and give them a free preparatory education. And so we're just going to come through and talk to both of them to find out what exactly they do, how they do it, why they do it. Funmilayo, if you don't mind me calling you by your first name.
No, please do.
What prompted you to, go for the children of the blind? What were you thinking?
I don't think I was actually thinking. We had a program, a Feed the Poor program, and somehow God led us to this particular colony because we used to give out meals once a week all over Lagos as much as we could. But on this particular day, as we're giving our meals, some said, "Are you looking for blind or disabled?" And I said, "Yes." And they led us to this particular house in Idiaraba. And we gave them meals once a week, about 100 meals, for about a year and a half, when I had this leading of the Holy Spirit to start a school. And I found that very strange because, and the head of the colony, the head of the blind in Lagos, visited us one day, and I asked him, "Would you give us students if we wanted to start a school?" Without flinching, he said yes. He said yes on 3 different occasions, but then my own faith waned, and he sent us photos of students. But for 1 year, I was waiting for big money to come in to start. But like we know, God doesn't operate the way we think. But on a particular day, I saw one of the children. By this time, we had built a relationship. And I saw one of the children, and the Holy Spirit said to me, "That's one of the children you're supposed to have been teaching."
Let me just interrupt you for a moment.
Yes.
These children generally end up leading blind people begging for a living.
Yes.
So these are the people that you were aiming for.
These were the people we were led to. Because except that we were led, I wouldn't have thought about it, and on that particular day was like fire on the mountain. I realized I was failing God big time, and I just had to. And in 1 week, from nothing, the way God normally does, from nothing, by the time I went back to the Serki, I think I was a little bit annoyed, as if, but 20 children showed up. We started on the 9th of September, 2009. That is the school.
At what stage did Mrs. Abe come into the picture? Was she there right from the beginning when you were feeding and so on?
Mrs. Abe wasn't there when we were feeding. I'm not quite sure I remember that she knew about that. But she came in. I had been the general dog's body. I was a driver, I was a teacher, I was the cook, I was the everything.
So you feed them at school as well?
We feed them 2 meals and a snack. Okay. But Mrs. Abe had taught my own children at school. And when I was looking for somebody to talk to, I can't even recall how, when, and when. Maybe she will recall. But Mrs. Abe stepped up and she gave her services free of charge for 2 years. I think it was 2 years, and she also brought somebody else on board, and they taught the children while I faced other things like cooking and fundraising.
We're going to come back to you to talk about the challenges you faced in the moment, but let's hear from Mrs. Abe.
How did you join Mrs. David? My husband and I were driving home, and we just saw somebody following us, driving right behind us. And we were wondering, somebody following us? What exactly is happening? So we stopped somewhere to find out if the car would move away, from behind us. And they stopped as well. She then came out, and at that point in time, our minds were settled. So she said she had been looking for me, that the Lord led her to actually look for me, but she couldn't find my number. And so we went into the house. And she told me about the school and how she wanted me to assist. I was not persuaded because I didn't think I could do it. But my husband, after she left, my husband told me exactly who I am, that what he has seen in me, and how I actually love children, that I should. It's a challenge, but I should give it a try. So the following
Thank God for husbands.
A good husband. The following day, he took me there, and I thought the first thing was to assess the children, because there was this barrier. They couldn't speak English, I couldn't speak Hausa. So I found out that a child could speak Pidgin English. So I thought that child, the grade I gave her was like in primary 1. And so I assessed all the children, and I thought there is no way they're going to understand anything I teach them. But when we were leaving, all of these children came and hugged me, and I thought there is no escape in this one. So I told Funlayo that I will give it a try, but it will be once a week. So she picked me up, and the following day, and after the day was over, I thought there's nothing these children would learn in one day. So I volunteered 2 days because I was consulting in another school. And the 2 days were really challenging. But I thought the first thing to do was to teach them how to read, So we started with the sound of the letters. And they were picking up, they were eager. And then we went on to letter words, 3. And in a month, I had 7 children that could read. And so those 7 children, as one child was able to read, we doubled it up. Then we had 4, and on like that. So they were eager, and I thought there was no stopping them. So apart from reading, they started with the days of the week, months of the year, and then we went on to telling the time. So there was a lot of progress. While this was on, my deputy in another school saw me and asked what I was doing, and I broke the news to her, and she volunteered her time as well. Her name is Mrs. Amao, and she spent a whole year with us, and I did too with the children.
Lovely. Now, Funlayo, what are the challenges that you face getting the kids to come to school?
From the kids' end, delinquency, lack of parental support, the kind we would give our children, and that is so important. We had we had a grand plan to use the British curriculum, but that plan was quickly abandoned. We had to deal with communication. We communicated sign language Like when it was time for food, we would go abinchi, you know, and then punctuality. Discipline issues that we would normally inculcate in our children, they lacked. It was a great challenge to put them, you know, back on the path that we wanted, to be able to, like, we were used to having classrooms that were not noisy when we were in school, but it was a big carnival for them, you know, but we dealt with that. Our greater challenge now, by God's grace, I think we can run the school with our eyes closed. Even in my dream, I can run the school, kind of. The greatest challenge has always been funding for us, because like every household in Lagos knows, food is very expensive. And when you're feeding about...
So you're teaching them and you're feeding them.
Yes, and
okay.
Clothing them.
And clothing
Everything they need, the Lord provides. School uniforms, with panties, vests, socks, shoes, comb, soap.
Are you dealing with both sexes or just?
Both sexes.
Okay.
Both sexes. And I also want to commend the Serki who, in that he allowed the girl child to come. In fact, the first registered student was his own daughter, you know, and he allowed them. We had a lot more girls than we had boys initially. Somehow it seems to be swinging towards the more boys now, but I think we have a pretty even, yes. So we had his support where we lacked parental support, you know, but the system, they have a very beautiful structure, you know, in terms of line of authority and all. He also personally, I think it's a personal character trait. He would say so much, but leave the final decision to the parents. But I think for the community, seeing that he's with us, working with us, and he supports us, it has helped to get the children. Of course, there are also cultural issues. You know, I remember the day we took them swimming. We took them swimming, and the next day, virtually the school was empty, virtually empty. And when I found out what was going on, it was like, oh, they had been wondering why we were doing it. And they were watching and seeing what would give, you know. And but on the day we took them swimming, they concluded that, oh, this was where we're going. We wanted to take them for water ritual. But eventually we got over that as well. So very challenging, very frustrating in terms of how, you know, because we're not used to doing things but very fulfilling.
You mentioned that funding the school is one of your challenges. How do you get funding?
I want to say very loud and clear that I have since learned in 5.5 years that if God sends you, He will make provision. And that has really, that is what it has been.
But if God touches the hearts of any of our viewers, they should get in touch with you.
They should.
To support.
Because what we have done so far, I ask the next person, just the next person. I want to say this as a testimony of God's faithfulness. I have woken up in the morning several times, not knowing what to give them to eat. But there's not been a day when they went home not fed. You know, initially we used a lot of volunteers because of this funding issue, but you know, we really don't have a volunteers culture in Nigeria. So we found out sooner that, look, you better employ people and pay them if you want. So salary issues were also a challenge for the staff.
These are staff that are helping out with the school.
Yes, yes.
Why education, and how has it helped to shape the lives of the children that you teach?
Why education? I don't know the answer to say why did we choose education, but it was just a natural thing that we saw that would change the children's lives. I'm a teacher's child. My mother was in the education system for 46 years in Lagos. I've always been involved somehow. Actually, come to think of it, I wanted to be a teacher. But my mother wanted me to be a lawyer. But I went round how many, 30-something years, and I came back to teaching ABC and 1, 2, 3. So education, like you know, is just the quickest method by which you can change a life. Like the present president of Brazil, the lady who was just sworn in, she testified that she went to school at the age of 16. And if she hadn't had an education, I don't think she'll be where she is today. Even as late as it was. That is why when we started with 3-year-olds and 17-year-olds in the same class. It didn't matter, you know. And if you can use her own example, you know that she never read or write until 16.
Okay, I have another question. You're a Christian.
Yes, I am.
And most of the children you teach are Muslims.
Yes.
So how important is it to develop relationships beyond your faith? To people that are not within your faith, yeah?
First of all, like I said, we had a Feed the Poor program. But that was what God used to build a relationship. Not so much from my own side, but from the other side. By the time the issue of the school came up, we had a relationship, a great relationship that we didn't even know was going to get to this point. But also, I think I had a history of working with Muslims since I was a child. My mother ran a boarding home for several years, and a good number of those children that lived with us in the body, because we lived together, were Muslims. So that issue has never been an issue for me. It has just been a norm, and I never addressed that consciously. But specifically, the Serki has just been wonderful. You know, the parents have just been wonderful. We go beyond the school. The relationship we have goes beyond the school. They come to me with personal issues. We're into their lives as much as, you know, they allow us. When they have, we've had 1 or 2 deaths, parents dying. We've been into it as if, in fact, the marriage of our first registered student, the mission more or less funded it. And so we have a very good relationship that the divide is so blurred, is virtually non-existent.
We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, I'd like to ask you about the challenges that are posed because the school holds in your living room.
Okay.
Stay tuned, viewers. We'll be back in a moment.
Watch your favorite Heart of the Matter episodes online at www.theheartofthematter.tv. Also, check out exciting behind-the-scenes photos. Leave your comments and like us on Facebook.
Welcome back to the Heart of the Matter. We still have with us Mrs. Oluwafunmilayo David, who is the founder of GEMS Preparatory School. The location of the school is in your living room and your dining room. This must be constraining or challenging.
It has been, not on my own part. The first were my walls, because I've always lived in a white house, and in a matter of a couple of days, I couldn't recognize my walls anymore. That took some getting used to. First of all, I used to run after them with paint. Don't touch the walls, don't touch the walls, but it wasn't working. Eventually, I think we've gotten used to that. I think we paint about twice a year, you know, but I now use the same calendar as my last daughter's school. She was really the only one. So like when she's in school, we're in school. We make sure we close before she comes home. When she's on holidays, we go on holidays too. So we had to use her school calendar, and that was the minimum. But on some few occasions, we crossed paths, you know. But I think they realized that it was a sacrifice they had to make, even though they were forced to make it. I unfortunately did not ask their opinion. I didn't, but those are just the two major things.
And really, ideally, you would prefer to have a purpose-built place, or a place that is totally separate from home because of all the other challenges. So really, maybe we need to ask if there's any viewer out there who can come in with help. Maybe has a building that you know,
or
they
land.
can. Yes.
Yes.
You know. So we'll be very happy for that. Also joining us, just as we came back from our break, is Alhaji Abdullahi Hamza, who is the Serki Markafi of Lagos. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Now, Alhaji does not speak much English, and I don't speak much Hausa. So I'm going to speak in Yoruba, which he speaks. I'm going to ask in Yoruba, which he has a little of, and you will get the subtitles in English. Alhaji, sir.
Naam.
Kí ni àǹfààní tí school yẹn ti mú wá fún àwọn ọmọ yín? Ẹ sọ ní Hausa sí.
To, abin da yasa wannan school yana da amfani kwarai da gaske. Saboda yaranmu in suka koyi karatu, wato za mu samu damar su rike mu har su rike waɗansu namu ma gaba ɗaya. Saboda ita makaranta ita ke wayar da kowa ya san abin da yake yi. Aga saboda shi ne wannan ya sa muka sa 'yanmu makarantar nan, saboda kansu ya waye su ma su zama wani abu tare da jama'a, su zamanto kamar kowa, su karatu, wasu su zama manya-manyan mutane kamar yadda kowa ke zama, wasu zama gwamnoni, akwai masu zama lauya, akwai masu zama doctor, akwai masu irin wannan abubuwa. In muka samu ma sai ga mu jama'a mun gode wa Allah. Saboda haka yasa muka gane cewar mu sa 'ya'yanmu makaranta saboda su koyi karatu, su ba su zama wani abu kamar yadda kowa ke zama a Najeriya. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
The Markafi is saying that he really would love to answer, but his Yoruba is not deep enough to be able to give us answers. But some of the things that we've talked about, a lot of the children that have been to the school are able to read now, and then they've actually succeeded in getting one child into secondary school, two children into secondary school, and one of them was a straight A student. So they're deriving fulfillment from the fact that they're taking people who would otherwise be out on the streets, children who had become breadwinners in their families because their parents couldn't work. So these children were leading their parents and actually doing most of the work for them. So this is some of the fulfillment they are deriving from the work that they're doing. There are obviously many ways in which you can help. Because I called Funmilayo a hero at the beginning of the program, because she absolutely stands to gain nothing material from this. Her reward for this is from God. But what she's doing is she's taking young people who would otherwise never have had any opportunity and giving them the opportunity of a fundamental or a basic education. We're looking from the heart of the matter to you to support projects like this. So please do. And we'll have her details up on the screen for you so you can get in touch with her and you know, in whatever way, cash, kind, whatever way you can help. I'm sure it will be gratefully received. Alhaji, Eshe Gon, Adupe.
Alhamdulillah.
We've been delighted to bring this episode to you this week. Please remember the children of the blind in your prayers. They need lots and lots of help. In the meantime, we'll be back again next week with another episode. Until then, stay blessed.